Hello, I'm Jerry Willis, and this is a special edition of Your Bottom Line, the show that saves you money. On this Thanksgiving weekend, we're taking a look back at 2009 and your personal finances. From your house to your job, your savings and your debt. Well, was there anything to be thankful for? And what do you have to look forward to in 2010? The show that saves you money starts right now. So let's begin with your bank account. It's no surprise that the economy is squeezing many of you. Our budgets are under pressure. Saving money is a dream for many people. So let's get straight to the solutions. Ryan Mack is the president of Optimum Capital Management. Dani Babb is the author of The Accidental Landlord. And Lynette Calfani-Cox is the author of Zero Debt, The Ultimate Guide to Financial Freedom. Donna Rosado is a senior writer with Money Magazine. Welcome, everybody, to the Thanksgiving table.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Jerry. Great to be here.
I think, this whole idea of savings and debt is so important. And, Ryan, we've seen savings rate really rise in September, something like 3.3%. But is this sustainable, or are people doing this because they feel like they have to?
Well, you know what? If there's any time that fear was a good thing, it's been over this past year or so, when we've seen the economy pull back from the brink of one of the hardest economies since the 1930s. So now individuals are understanding the power of saving, the power of what they need to do with each individual dollar. There's only three things you can do with money. You can spend it, you can invest it, or you can give it. So we have to understand the power of saving it so we can start to do those other things and more fruitful things outside of just material wealth and putting things on things that have no value.
Dani, we got so used to savings. I mean to spending rather than saving. I think a lot of people out there would feel that way. And, this year we're seeing that people are saying, when it comes to spending for the holidays, I'm actually going to pay in cash.
Paying cash and debit card. For the first time in history, debit card use is actually going to increase credit card use over the holiday season, which really says a lot about where the American consumer's head is and how concerned they are about going further in debt.
Yeah, debt. Lynette, I think so many people out there are thinking, what do I do about this? And of course, the biggest tool people use for debt is the credit card, typically. Right. What's your advice to people out there?
Well, I think Dani touched upon one thing. First, this holiday season, certainly, I think you want to be using cash more than those credit cards or perhaps your debit card to access your checking account or your savings account. But even if you're going to use those credit cards, you better check a couple of things before you hit the malls.
Like what?
Your credit limit, because it might have been slashed, your interest rate, because perhaps it's been changed, and the account status, because remember, a lot of banks have closed off accounts and haven't even notified people that the accounts are closed. And you don't want to be embarrassed with a cart full of stuff when you're trying to shop out there.
That's a great idea. I want people to hear something from Elizabeth Warren. You guys all know Elizabeth Warren, what she had to say about credit cards and some of the things that you're pointing out, Lynette.
The consumer credit market is broken. There's just no other way to describe it. We now receive credit card agreements that are 30, 32 pages long, and they're filled with incomprehensible text. That means that I can't look at credit card A, credit card B, and credit card C and tell the difference between them. Tell which one I really want, tell which one has the highest risk or the lowest risk.
So it's been so frustrating for so many people out there because you felt like the rules were changing all the time, especially this year as the limits were reduced and interest rates were raised. Donna, what would you say to people out there who are trying to figure out what are the new ground rules? How is it going to change with this new Cards Act?
A lot has changed already. I think, as Lynette already said, that people are seeing that ahead of the new card rules taking effect in February, people are seeing their interest rates rise on their credit cards and their credit limits cut, and sometimes their cards are even being shut down. But the good news is something to look forward to, that you're going to be, in 2010, you're going to have less onerous rules on your credit cards. And I think that's a good thing for people. I don't think credit card debt is a positive thing. I mean, you've seen interest rates really climb. Right. The average interest rate on a credit card today is 14%. A year ago, it was 11%. This is not debt that you want to have. So the good news is you're going to be treated more fairly with a credit card in 2010, but this is not the kind of debt that you want to have.
Absolutely not. Ryan, what is there to look forward to? I mean, people have more savings. Is that that's got to be a good thing, right?
Well, it definitely is a good thing. I mean, the GDP is definitely going to rise slower than it had in the past. But I don't think that the sugar high, the GDP rush that we saw, the 6 to 7% rise,
I love that.
That's essentially what it was. I mean, it wasn't sustainable. So now we're going to get it back to the basics. Getting back to the basics of putting money away, saving for a rainy day, and talking about the credit cards. The credit card companies, they're going to be earning projected about $39.5 billion off of overdraft fees. So So just the simple things of budgeting and making sure that if we have $20 in our account, let's not spend $30 and give them that $35 fee that we have to pay to them.
Amen to that. Lynette, I want to turn to you for a second, because what Ryan is saying here is so important. You know, when people do pay down their debt, and I know that you personally had a lot of debt at one point, and you paid it off.
Right.
How does that make you feel going forward?
It's liberating. It's tremendously gratifying, because you really do feel enslaved by the debt. You feel like there's so much that I can't do because I'm in bondage with the debt.
It's
I can't
weight on your
save.
shoulders,
Oh, absolutely.
right?
I can't save for my future. I can't save for my kids' college education. I can't tuck away money for college. I can't pursue business opportunities that I might like to have. And frankly, I'm just stressed out about it. Nobody likes the thought of living paycheck to paycheck, or perhaps arguing with their spouse about money, etc. So I think Ryan touched upon a great point, is that the back to basics movement that we've seen across America is a very, very good thing. I expect that the savings rate is going to stay markedly higher than it was, say, a couple years ago, right, Donna, when it was negative 2%. And so this is a good thing. We've all had to wean ourselves from credit, and that's good for the American economy and for the global economy going forward.
Well, Lynette, great thoughts. Great thoughts, everybody. Thanks a lot. Stay put. You're not going anywhere. We're just getting started. Unemployment is over 10%. How safe is your job right now and going forward? We'll also tackle your #1 investment, your home. Since the beginning of the recession back in December 2007, the unemployment rate has gone from 4.9% all the way past the double-digit mark. The unemployment rate jumped to 10.2% in October. That is the highest since 1983. And with these numbers this startling, when will we see a recovery on the jobs front? Donna, I want to turn to you. 7.3 million Americans unemployed since the beginning of the recession. Where are the jobs we've been promised?
We've lost more than 7 million jobs. The unemployment rate is at the highest in more than almost 3 decades. So where are the jobs? The bad news is that the unemployment rate is going to continue to go higher, but there have been some bright spots, even in the worst of the downturn. Healthcare continues to be higher. If you look at unemployment, the unemployment rate within healthcare and education together, it's less than 5% compared to 10% for the overall economy.
So that's very different.
It is very different. And then for folks who have a college degree as well, it's also about half of the overall unemployment rate. So folks who are in some growing industries and who have been adding to their skills and have education have felt a little bit less of the pain, but no doubt in 2010 the unemployment rate is going to remain high, and we all need to keep adding to our skills.
So I know that, you know, when you talk about unemployment, the people who've been really affected, there are a lot of boomers that have been affected, older people in the workforce that have been affected, and some of these folks haven't interviewed in decades. They don't even know how to do it, Lynette. What's your advice?
Well, you know, to anybody out there who has to sort of start over if they've gotten a pink slip, you know, you definitely want to obviously bone up on all your skill sets, your communication skills, your technical skills, your managerial skills, your writing skills, and so forth. You want to obviously polish up that resume, get any kind of career counseling or advice you can get. But I think one thing to highlight, just to follow on what Donna was talking about, some of the good news, there are industries that are hiring, like healthcare and education. Government sector is also hiring, right?
Jobs, right?
But to the average person out there who's job hunting, it just doesn't feel that way for 2 important reasons. One is that 1 out of 3 of the 15 million unemployed Americans right now have been out of a job for 6 months or longer. So we're talking about chronic unemployment, and that hurts. I mean, when you think about the average family really just needing a paycheck every 2 weeks, to the thought of going 6 months or more without a steady earned income is daunting. The other factor, though, if I say this real quickly, for every 1 full-time job that's available, there are 6 workers vying for that job.
All right.
So it's very competitive.
So let's get Dani in here, because I know she's been thinking a lot about small business and small business hiring.
Yeah.
You know, this is the engine of the American economy. When are they going to start really hiring in earnest?
Well, what's happening right now is about 30% of the American workforce is employed by companies with 100 or fewer employees in general. That's small businesses. Small businesses are afraid to death of taxes, and they're not hiring. What we do know is that employment lags behind the economy substantially up to a couple of years. Back in 1983, we had an 8% growth rate in the economy, but we only dropped unemployment by 2.5%. So it's going to be some time before we see these jobs return back to the market. Where we're seeing growth is exactly what's been talked about already. Healthcare, green jobs is another area, and higher education. If you have a master's degree, this may be the time to get a part-time teaching job while you're waiting for your full-time job.
A part-time teaching job. Ryan, give me some hope here.
Well, definitely. I think that people people get it. I mean, I'm from Detroit, and the community colleges right now are being overflowed with individuals trying to get additional training, additional services to say that I need to get recertified, I need to get additional licenses. This is the direction that we need to go. Find out what your skills are, what your talents are, what your passion is, what are you good at. I mean, you might have been in automotive industry working on the line, but you know what? You might want to see if you can become a nurse's assistant.
Well,
or another
that brings up a good question. I mean, do you think people will start moving for jobs? I mean, that's happened in the past where people leave areas like Detroit where unemployment is so awful. Do you think, Ryan, that we can start seeing really some displacement of workers to different parts of the country?
I think that individuals are going to start thinking outside the box. And if that's changing locations, if that's changing careers, if that's changing countries, we have to understand that this is what it's all about. We have to figure out what you need to do to get dollars in your pocket, food on your table, thinking aggressively, and being positive. Think optimistically. Things are going to start turning your way.
And one other thing, I think, for the people who are unemployed, to give them a little bit of hope. You know, I always talk to people, and I know Dani is a big advocate. She and I are both entrepreneurs, Ryan as well. And, you know, the thing is, sometimes it's easier to land a client than it is to land a job. So people who have certain specialty skill sets, think about consulting, think about, you know, turning a hobby into cash, pursuing a little bit of that entrepreneurial ambition and that, go-to-itiveness, if that's a good word to use or phrase, that sort of defined a lot of the American ethos here. You know, don't just think that your fortune is completely tied to corporate America. Think about pursuing a small business opportunity. That might help you.
It's sort of the rise of freelance nation, and I think it's a positive thing. You know, it kind of puts you more in control of your career, and I think, especially if healthcare reform gets fixed, it's going to be easier to pursue those kind of opportunities.
Great conversation. Still ahead, your house and your healthcare. Lots has changed this year, and there are even more changes in store for next year. Stay with us. Still with us this half hour, and they're not going anywhere. Ryan Mack, Dani Babb, Lynette Calfani-Cox, and Donna Rosado. Just last month, the third consecutive monthly decline in foreclosure filings. Is it a possible indication that the foreclosure tide is turning? Well, back in February, I spoke to the head of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, Sean Donovan. Here's what he had to say.
The key effort at limiting foreclosures will be using a significant amount, tens of billions of dollars of TARP money, to be able to accelerate dramatically modifications of mortgages. And what we are working on is a plan to create a set of incentives, assistance to do that, while at the same time making sure that we have the tools that will ensure that lenders do it through a range of options.
All right, so that was Sean Donovan and Dani Babb. I mean, you know, making home affordable, not getting a lot of traction here. What do you see in the marketplace? Because you're really at the ground level.
Yeah, what I'm seeing is banks completely unwilling to make a modification for a homeowner unless they're going to get government money to do it, which means that about 30% of the homeowners out there that need it will actually get it. Right now, 2/3 of the U.S. population owns a home. 1/4 of the U.S. homes actually have negative equity. These people will be in foreclosure at some point. We haven't begun to see the jumbo market fail, which will happen in 2011.
Is that what you're saying, Dani?
I'm saying that the housing market will get worse, but we have to remember, too, that 4 states make up 50% of the foreclosure rate. So it's not widespread. It is very specific to certain areas.
Ryan, I want to turn to you. Now, I know you think that, you know, what's going on with the government and the spending going on there is really kind of propping up the numbers and making it look better than it otherwise would.
Well, stimulus has definitely helped, but I'm especially when it comes to the home tax credit. We have to urge individuals, don't buy a home just because you get a tax credit. We have to get back to the basics. Do you have your FICO score higher? Do you have not only a regular budget, but a house budget to figure out how much can you really afford? Now, the tax credit should be like the cherry on top of the banana split. It shouldn't be the banana split itself. It's like that additional incentive that you have that says, oh, you know what? I can afford to buy a home, and guess what? Now I'll get an additional $8,000 to help subsidize my payments. So just don't go out and purchase that.
Donna, what do you make of that? I mean, you've talked about how the numbers are misleading and the shadow inventories out there. Do we have a long road to go in this market?
We still do. I have to say that we'll probably have more foreclosures. 2.4 million foreclosures are projected in 2010 versus 2 million in this year. So it's going to get worse before it gets better. Home prices are still going to decline. But as Dani said, it is somewhat geographic. I mean, the good news is we're seeing some stabilization in the housing market. And if you are a home buyer, this is the good news, you know, with the tax credit. As Ryan said, you want to have all your ducks in a row before you use that. But if you are a home buyer and you're in the market, that is what's stimulating some of the economy,
Right.
is helping stabilize some of these things.
But you know, the interesting point is it's not just the people who want to buy, it's also the people who already own,
Correct.
who are in deep trouble. Lynette, what would you tell them?
Well, first of all, obviously, like Ryan said, you don't want to bite off more than you can chew. The $8,000 tax credit for first-time home buyers is one incentive. I think it's moving the needle in terms of stimulating housing purchases a lot more for the first-time home buyer as opposed to the trade-up or move-up buyer. They're eligible through April of 2010 for a $6,500 tax credit. But frankly, nobody I know who's going to buy a second home is just going to do so just for $6,500.
But my question is, what about people who are in homes right now and they've seen the value of their home fall? What would be your words of wisdom for them? Because there are really people who are thinking, what am I going to do here? Should I hold on to this house? Should I try to unload it? You know, I'm losing value every day.
I understand. I would say consider your situation and look at it in two different terms. One is, don't be swayed by the masses to say, oh, everybody else is walking away from their mortgage. You know, what's the big deal? Everybody will have a foreclosure, a late payment, a delinquency on their record. Oh, it'll be easier in the long run because so many other people did it that way. No, it's not going to be, because the credit scoring system is still going to be severely, you know, punitive and penalizing you for doing that just to sort of haphazardly walk away.
So don't do that.
No, I really don't encourage people to do that. Seek every possible alternative, whether it's budgeting, credit counseling, perhaps a debt management program,
Right.
to see if you can hang on to what potentially could be the biggest asset of your life. If you truly cannot afford a house, try to do a short sale. Try to work out a plan where, if you know, the minimal damage is done to your credit rating and your overall family's, you know, your overall financial well-being.
We have to, again, get back to basics. This is your home. This is the place where you hang your hat. Too many people have started to think of their home as an investment. If your home starts to lose in value and you're going to be there for the next 30 years, hopefully you'll be able to take that home and pass it down to your children's children and keep it in the family. So what if it loses value? Hopefully you did it in the right way and just you did it in a responsible way.
All right, we got to go. I mean, you know, we're going to have an after show now, right? Just like Oprah. All right, we'll be back in a minute with more conversation. Last but certainly not least, your health care. Open enrollment season has wrapped up at companies across the country. Big changes are in store for you and your family, and we'll break it all right down right after this. All right, quickly, guys, before we run out of time, one thing we certainly have to be thankful for this time of year is our health. And while the healthcare debate is far from over, open enrollment season is pretty much done. So let's take a quick listen to what our friend Andrew Rubin told us back in October about what's in store for next year.
Well, coinsurance has always existed, but now what's changing is, like you said, co-pays are going away in some plans and they're applying coinsurance amounts. It's very simple to understand. 10, 20% of whatever the bill is, the individual is going to pay, as opposed to $10, $20, $30 co-pays that used to apply. You're starting to see that more. It's not universal, but it's been introduced in a lot of places.
Anna, what do you have to say about that? Because I know our company's changing to coinsurance.
That is right. There's no doubt that we're all going to be paying more for health insurance in 2010. But here's one good trend, that a lot of the companies that are changing to coinsurance are also offering free preventive care. So get that annual physical, get that cholesterol screening. That'll help you stay healthy and be in charge of your health care and stay healthy.
Which is the most important thing, right, Lynette?
Absolutely. Yeah. And also for, you know, there's 48 million Americans who are uninsured, underinsured. One thing you might look at is what's offered by your state, because if you're in a low to moderate income bracket, there may be healthcare options available for you or for your kids if you can't afford to pay for it yourself.
Like the S-CHIP program,
That's
which is
correct,
so popular.
exactly.
Dani, I've been telling people that what you want to do is use up your benefits this year because it may not be as nice next year. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right, and we also need to take advantage of health savings accounts and flexible spending accounts if your employer offers it, and we need to really be mindful of how this is going to impact small businesses.
I think the bottom line is we have to understand that physical prosperity is just as important as financial prosperity. So are you working out 4 times a week? Are you going to the dentist? Those dental bills can add up over time. Are you making sure you're eating right? This is one of the fattest time of the year for every one of us. So we have to make sure just because we don't have a license to eat unhealthily just because it's Thanksgiving, make sure you're working out and keeping yourself in shape.
Ryan, I love that. Donna?
And I guess I would just add on to that that you want to take advantage of that preventative care, and you know you can have a gym membership and put that into your flexible spending account. There's a lot of things that you can write off to help yourself stay healthy.
Thought about that. That's
Yes.
a great idea.
Yeah.
Lynette, one last word here for people out there who are thinking about what am I going to do about health care? They're worried about their families. You mentioned some state programs. The S-chip program, great for kids, right? If you're really against it,
Absolutely.
you don't have a job, there are free alternatives out there for people.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think a lot of people need to get over the pride factor. Sometimes people don't want to accept either government or state aid or free options that might be available to them. Maybe they think they might be taxing the system in an unnecessary way. But listen, if your kids need it, if you need it for your health, this is the time to go ahead and say, I'm eligible, I'm going to take advantage of it. Don't be too proud to go ahead and get the help you need.
Well, I appreciate all your comments today. You guys are so helpful. Ryan, a last word here for people out there who are thinking, is next year going to be better?
Well, I always like to tell individuals that, you know, if you have the faith, you know, faith is half believing that tomorrow is going to be better, and the other half is acting on that belief, because people act according to what they believe is going to happen. But you have to have the works to put in the work to make sure that tomorrow will be a better tomorrow.
Excellent job, Ryan. Excellent job, panel. You guys were fantastic. Thank you so much. As always, we thank you for spending part of your weekend with us. You can catch Your Bottom Line every Saturday and Sunday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on HLN. Don't go anywhere. Clark Howard is next. Have a great weekend.